Just keep applying. Don't stop.
Right. Black Power. Oh,
Black Power, y'all. Good morning.
Black Power, Robert. What's up, comrade? What it do? All right, y'all make sure y'all share as soon as you come in.
Black Power,
Black Power, Kimya.
I'm surprised I could see that far.
What up?
Black Power, y'all. Make sure you share in all your groups and on all your pages. Share, and hashtag share when you shared it.
Please, yes, do that. Where Gigi at, Robert? Ooh, I know I'm gonna mispronounce that. Black Powered.
Oh shit.
D. Oh wait.
Let me just go ahead and.
D. Oh, she slumped. Dahabu. Did I pronounce that right?
Oh, I know.
What she did last night?
Hey, girl, I know her.
Oh, you know her?
I know her. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Dahabu.
Are we pronouncing that right?
Yeah, don't let us butcher your name.
Okay.
But I do know who she is. She's cool people.
Black Power.
Alright.
And where Gigi turned, well, y'all was turning up last night. She slumped like that. Dahabu. Okay. Right on.
Y'all ready? I'm about to share it on my own page.
Oh, there she go, Gigi on. Black Power,
Black Power
Gigi.
This is gonna help me see.
Yeah, okay. Right on.
Okay, we got you, sis.
The Dominican spot. Gigi, what you was drinking last night?
Dang, I'm the only one that turned up last night. I feel
She's
like
myself, Robert. OMG, shut up.
I feel like a lame.
All right, let's go ahead and get this thing started. Thank you all for tuning in to the Revolutionary Book Trap. With me and Comrade Nyah, and y'all already know we're doing Revolutionary Suicide by Comrade Huey P. Newton. And first, we just want to clear up. We know that it was a meme put out by wonderful social media that today we were doing chapters 27 through 29, but that was a mistake, and we're so critical for that. What we're going to be doing this morning is reviewing chapter 26, which is the trial based upon Huey and him supposedly shooting and killing these officers when they actually shot him. And the crazy shit about it is, we really don't get to all of the details about what happened, because immediately after Huey was shot, he went unconscious, and he even says that he doesn't even, he can't even recall what exactly happened. And then on top of that, chapter 26 is also pretty lengthy. So what we're going to do is discuss pages 215 to 240, and then next week we're going to finish it up and then go into chapter 27. And I think it's really important that we take our time with chapter 26, because when we read Asada's autobiography and the things that she had to go through during her trial when she was accused of shooting the officer on the Jersey Turnpike, it's just a lot of similarities that we see within these chapters. So Black Power.
Black Power, Quayshawn. Thank you for joining. Make sure you guys share. And then we've also posted the donation links. So if you've not donated, or if you'd like to donate, please donate to any of those places. You can donate on CashApp BHBookclub. You can donate on GoFundMe at www.gofundme.com/donate. /Black Hammer Or.
Yeah.
www.gofundme.com/Black Hammer Or. And you can also donate on our website, www.blackhammer.org/donate.
We have a special guest.
Yes.
So this is Giselle. Giselle, say hello.
Say
to
Black
everybody.
Power.
Say Black Power.
She's really sweet, y'all. She's really sweet.
All right, so let's go ahead and kick this thing off. I think we should start off by reading the quote by Bobby Seale. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, because this is going to put a lot of things in perspective as far as how this unraveled. So the quote is, "We knew before Huey's trial began in mid-July that the whole power structure wanted to hang Huey. We understood that William Nolan, the publisher of the Oakland Tribune, the mayor and the other politicians, the DA and the cops were also treacherous, that they would do anything to get a conviction and send Huey to the gas chamber. We asked Charles Gary a number of times what he thought would happen, and he would run it down. How Huey was really innocent and how the two cops had shot each other in an attempt to kill Huey." And if you remember when we left off, all of this has been building up for over 9 months to prepare since the actual incident itself. And Huey didn't really have a recollection of what happened when he was shot to even be able to put all this together. So all this was, investigated and within the Black Panther Party themselves. And this is what has come out. So, yeah. So the trial, it actually starts on July the 15th in 1968.
In Alameda
County. If you're from Alameda County.
Thank you for sharing, comrade. Black Power Muhammadu. Thank you for sharing.
So yeah, if you're from Alameda County, forgive us if we're pronouncing it. We didn't name it anyway.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Alameda County. And it kicked off with a lot of demonstrators. It says 5,000 demonstrators and about 450 Black Panthers to show their support. So it was a really high-profile case. Got a lot of media coverage, and it's just, y'all, so many things are already popping off. So the courthouse was under so much surveillance that they had basically snipers on the tops of the roofs, pointed it at the demonstrators in case they even attempted to try to break Huey out or do anything.
Like how did they even see that happening though? Like, and then I mean, what's also very important to comment on the fact was that the Black Panther Party did have a presence there at the trial and was not intimidated by, all of these guns, like you were just saying, comrade, how they had the whole courthouse and everything surrounded. And I mean, in the chapter says it was like 450 Black Panther Party members there. And I mean, like, if any you can really tell the integrity of any organization that can show up in the face of, all of these treacherous things that the state can do to try to demoralize us and scare us away so we wouldn't be able to support our comrade Huey, or any other political prisoner that the state is trying to put their hands on. So I think that was just really a very powerful show of strength.
Absolutely.
Black Power.
Absolutely.
Black Power.
And Huey never doubted the trust that he had in his comrades. That's important too. Like he knew they were going to hold him down. He didn't question whatever they were doing to bring this to the people, to agitate the people, to organize them into doing this. So that's really admirable too. And of course, we got Judge Monroe Freeman, who's proceeding over, and Huey describes him as dour and humorless. I had to look up dour. And what it means is just somebody who is just really gloomy, just kind of like just a really sad person. But he was very prejudiced.
Go ahead. I was just getting ready to comment and say that, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that 10 times out of 9, any judge that you receive within this colonial justice system is going to be a white nationalist. I mean, that's just a given. And we're talking about in a time now where I believe, I can't remember who told me, but there have been judges who have been paid to put young black people into jail. Into jail. And so it's just like, you know, they've concocted this whole notion that any of us can go to trial, you know, and receive some type of fair, and that's not how it's ever been, especially for African people. And if you want to be technical, the system how it is now was set up for our entrapment in the first place. So, you know, here we have Comrade Huey, you know, who's commenting on how, you know, Monroe Freedman is, you know, portraying himself to be some upright, some, you know, upstanding type of judge. But as he speaks, you can literally hear the white nationalism. Huey describes it in total detail. Like, and the more as the trial progresses, more and more we see, you know, just this white nationalism come out of this judge.
Yeah, it's pretty blatant.
Yeah.
And then not only that, like all the things that my comrade was laying out, we're gonna see in this chapter, because it's just the way that they aid the prosecution in making their own goddamn case. Excuse my language, but they can't make their own case because their case literally starts to fall apart. And the judge clearly shows a bias in the way that he's willing to aid them. But we'll get to that. But it's pretty blatant here.
So first he talks about the judge, and then he moves on to the jury selection. And I will say his process, the process for getting Huey's jury was way shorter than what we saw with Comrade Asada, because I mean, they didn't get her judge. I think it was a couple of months, right?
I want to say so.
Okay. Yeah. They got his in 2 weeks, but I mean, that's not to understate that the prosecutor, Lowell Jensen, he developed a system to where there wasn't a possibility for Huey to get any black jurors, on the jury. And I just want to read read this passage real quick. So it says, it was difficult to find anyone without an opinion about the case. Then too, we wanted some black people. This was a vital issue, and as we learned through our investigations, a formidable hurdle to overcome. Our inquiries revealed that the assistant district attorney and prosecutor in my trial, so this nigga was the assistant to the DA and also the prosecutor in this trial. So I mean, if that's not a given that they're trying to just railroad Comrade Huey and this whole thing, I mean, I don't know what else can make it clear. So he says, Lowell Jensen had developed a system whereby blacks would ostensibly be on jury panels called for duty, but would always be eliminated before they were seated in an actual trial. So you know how you get a letter and says that you might have jury duty, so they call you in, you go through a process of like elimination or whatever. So what he would do was get the black juries on jury duty, but once they came into the examination, it would just be like, okay, well, you don't have to do jury duty this time. Just, you know, be on notice for another notice or something like that of that nature. So, okay, so it says that way it always appeared that blacks were an active part of the system, even though it was unlikely a black would serve on an actual jury. When my trial began, the routine changed. The other district attorneys in the area did not remove blacks from their jury panels. Therefore, while my trial was in session, there were juries in other courts with as many as 6 blacks on them. So not only were they trying to make it difficult to get black jurors onto Huey's case, but they were intentionally putting black juries on other cases because they already knew what the fuck was up. So yeah.
I mean that's pretty blatant too, especially given that most of those cases probably would never have that many black people on their cases in the first place, unless that's not even the case that's dealing with an African in the first place. It's really blatant. So yeah, I thought that was crazy. And like you were saying, it took about 2 weeks for them to select it. And it said, all in all, they started out with 180 people. They dwindled down to like a little over 100. He breaks down the demographics of the city, and they said Oakland was 38% black, had a population. I mean, it had other races as well, Chicanos, Asians, things of that sort. And then the jury ended up having 11 whites and 1 black person.
11 white
After all of
people
that.
and 1 black person on the jury for this trial.
That's your representation?
Yeah. And then just the way, you know, Huey and all of his discipline and things of that nature, like, he was really, so the black jury's name was Hopper. What was it?
Oh, yeah, it was Harper. What was his first name? David Harper.
David Hopper, okay.
Yeah.
So here it is, Black Power Stacey, you have David Hopper, who is the only African man on the jury, and here you have Comrade Huey, who is pondering, like, what exactly is David Hopper internalizing, like, through this whole experience? And, you know, just like without any bias for Comrade Huey to just, you know, try to understand the circumstances to which this African man is sitting on this jury right now. And, you know, at first he was afraid that this man, David Hopper, would be some type of sellout because as Huey lays out in the chapter, he works for some bank or whatever, and, you know, Huey assumes that he is bought. But as he says here in the chapter, when I finally testified, I directed my words to Hopper. He was my audience. An unspoken bond grew between us that convinced me he not only understood, but he also agreed with me. The only then did I see a glimmer of hope with the jury. He was it. But then again, it's compounded by the fact that it's only 1 black man and then 11, you know, white jurors on the case. So it was,
That was pretty deep. And just the fact that, I mean, we all do that. When we walk into situations where we're by ourselves and it's just like you looking for that other brown face or black face, and that you can unify with.
You give that look like.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We all know what that is.
Yeah.
We all know what that is. So yeah, that was heavy right there. And so there's that. What was the next part I kind of wanted to go into? So so then they have the openings. Well, I don't want to jump that far ahead, but basically, he does describe the district attorney as being somebody that was a challenge for them because of just, you know, the all the knowledge that he has. He was a good attorney, just not, you know, he's not worried about justice though. He's worried about getting a conviction.
Right.
And that's exactly what people, I think that we as Africans definitely need to understand is that these trials aren't really about, you know, what really happened in the first place. It's more about, okay, well, we need a conviction and we're trying to put somebody in jail behind this. And we've already been given our orders from the higher ups to do this. It's not about, I mean, you can watch any cop show and see that that's what it really comes down to. It's not about justice. That's bullshit. That is bullshit.
I had a thought, but I lost it. Maybe it'll come back.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's like, you know, so they're looking at your conviction rate as a prosecutor. You have a rate, just like, what's her name? Sellout ass, Kamala Harris.
Oh. Well, I was about to say Angela.
Well,
even though she is, but I mean, whatever.
But yeah, Kamala Harris was a prosecutor. So, you know, for her to have, she had a conviction rate she had to keep up with in order to be in that position. If she wasn't convicting anybody, if she wasn't throwing niggas in jail, she wouldn't have had her record.
And then also, just when you put into context this time period, first of all, you have Huey P. Newton, who has been one of the greatest revolutionaries to walk the face of the earth. It's in the height of the Black Revolution. And so the state, the establishment, U.S. imperialism, whatever, however you want to classify it, Huey is a target. And if this man, Lowell Jensen, can get a conviction for Huey P. Newton, this would make him some type of hero. And so, like Huey says that, you know, this guy was doing absolutely everything he could in order to get a conviction for Huey P. Newton. And I mean, we can discuss like more of what, you know, his tactics of what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
and go ahead and put your read that back. We know that we're only in one chapter this week, but you can go ahead and put your read that back up whenever they're relevant or even just throughout, and we'll definitely read them and discuss those in detail. So yeah, make sure you do that. It's down here at the page of bottom of page 219. He was talking about, he said the unspoken gamer challenge went on in the courtroom between Jensen and the judge and myself. I highlighted, but my lawyers and I understood the undercurrents and intangibles that were always present, difficult as they were to expose. And that's really what he's having Gary to do, is really to expose. It's not about whether he's going to get off or beat this case. It is about the outcome and making the people aware of how the court system works in the in the first place. But it says, and we knew that if the jury were aware of them, they would see the political nature of much that went on in the courtroom. For example, we surmised from the very start of the trial that Jensen had engineered the racist system by which blacks would be on jury panels called for duty, but eliminated before they could be seated for trial. I mean, so that just, highlights that. In his opening, in his opening statement to the jury, Jensen charged that I had murdered Officer John Gray with full intent, and that I had shot Officer Herbert Haynes, and that I had kidnapped Dale Ross. So those are the things that Huey is being charged with. And again, it's not, they already know this didn't happen, but they are going to make a case whether it happened or not. We need this nigga off the street. Right. He's dangerous, and we need to get him out of here.
And just to read to you all how flimsy, how the charges absolutely held no weight, none whatsoever. And I mean it's a dangerous type of situation, because we as colonized and African people, we think of these things as simple, it could be the most simplest thing. Like, say we as revolutionaries, we could be out in the highway and say we get caught jaywalking or something like that. That jaywalking charge can turn into pretty much murder.
We found a warrant on your arrest and you never took care of.
Just like how Huey is, describing in this chapter how aggressive this lawyer is trying to go after him. He says they had to find motivation for why Huey would want to, shoot and kill these two officers. So he says, the most crucial challenge facing the prosecution was to establish motivation for my alleged actions. Jensen claimed that I had 3 motives for my alleged crimes. First, he said I had a prior conviction for a felony and was on probation. Because of this, I knew that having a concealed weapon on my person would lead to another felony conviction if the police officers found the gun on me. Second, first, before we move on, the night that this happened, Huey had just got released from his probation. So what in the hell would possess him?
Why would he do that? That doesn't even make sense. As much interaction as he had already had with law enforcement, if he knew they were targeting him, why would he?
Second, they claimed that I had marijuana in the car and that bits of marijuana had been found in the pockets of my pants. This too could lead to another felony deed. And third, they claimed that I had given false identification to the police officer, which was a violation of the law. For these reasons, the prosecutor claimed I was so desperate to escape another felony charge that I killed an officer, wounded another, and kidnapped a citizen. As I said before, the prosecutor was willing to go to any lengths to win this case, as we see.
Yeah, it's very, very obvious. Like, it's not being hidden well at all. And I mean, when we get to these witnesses,
From now he just talks about, the different technicalities of the case, like how, first of all, they say that he had marijuana on him, but as a member of the Black Panther Party at that time,
right,
you were not allowed to use drugs. And I mean, like we just stated before, Huey just got off of probation, so why in the hell, what will possess him to even be associated with marijuana at the time? So he talks about that, carrying the gun and all of these different things of that nature. So then we get into where they talk about Eldridge Cleaver, who at this time, created a leaflet that was widely spread out through the black community. And as Huey describes it, the leaflet went on to say that black people are justified in killing all policemen who do this. Behind Eldridge's message lay the inference that I had killed a police officer even though I had not. Now, even we understand the leaflet, as Huey says, couldn't be used against him in court, but this didn't stop his family from worrying. And I mean, I can surmise that if, the public eye could probably end up thinking that Huey did, it was some type of, inference. But as Huey says, like, he didn't mind it because even with the type of literature that was in this leaflet, it was all connected to, just the means of politically educating the community to help us to understand that there's no way that we should allow the pigs to treat us this way, to come into our communities and brutalize and harass us, even if that means having to take the life of a pig.
right.
So, I mean,
it served a purpose, and Huey made that very clear.
Mm-hmm.
He made it clear that he trusted his comrades.
Yeah.
And he had total and complete trust in what they were doing to move and mobilize the community.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Eldridge Cleaver and what his legacy ended up being, I'm not sure what his actual motives were behind that.
Mm-hmm.
But Huey understood the big picture.
And I see you have that highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
Conrad, you want to read just what he told his family?
He said, I told them gently as I could not to interfere with anything Eldridge or other party members did during the trial because such actions could not be brought to the legal proceedings.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I was concerned, Eldridge was free to write and mobilize the community by any means necessary.
Yeah.
I supported him in that. Issuing the leaflet was a political act using the trial to heighten the consciousness of the community. And I was willing to go along with the party actions in the interest of educating the people, mobilizing in the community, and taking the contradictions to a higher level. That is revolutionary suicide.
Black Fire. So, yeah, next, okay, you ready to move on to the witnesses? Or is there anything else you want to highlight?
Not right there. So, yeah, I think I had made some notes on the next page, 223, where I guess Huey they're wanting to call Gene McKinney, which is the person that was in the car with Huey at the time the shooting went down. And then Huey had reservations about doing that at first. They end up, they end up releasing Gene's identity to bring him forward. And Huey surmises that they might be trying to use Gene against him.
Yeah.
Because they really don't, like we know, they don't really have a case. So he was really skeptical. He was skeptical about being brought forward and everything, but he had to be convinced that really they couldn't do anything to him. But this is something I just want to highlight, that for pretty much any African that is, you're being brought or subpoenaed or whatnot and everything, you have every reason to have disdain or distrust for this system. I mean, if you look at Joshua Brown, what just happened in the Amber Geiger case, and he was subpoenaed to testify, and then he didn't say what they wanted him to say, and then look what happened. So I can see why Gene would have been skeptical about coming forward. And then it goes into the fact that the prosecution took about 3 weeks to call all these witnesses to the stand. And look at these witnesses. The nurse that admitted him at the Kaiser Hospital, and then the person who did the autopsy on Frey, Officer Frey, Pig Frey. All these police officers, of course, that have a reason to lie, but they're hanging it on Haynes and Haynes. Yeah.
Greer. Okay, so let's get into Haynes' testimony. So from how Comrade Huey describes Haynes, in my mind, I picture like some inbred, sloppy, sweaty,
donutty,
redneck, this hunky ass cracker sitting on the screen.
Yeah.
So Huey talks about, obviously Haynes, or however you pronounce his last name, has been coached by the prosecution team, to say, whatever they have given him a script to say. And so Huey says that his story is just so conflicted, like he can't even keep up with what the prosecutor has coached him to say. So much to the point to, like, at the second day of the trial, I believe he has a meltdown on the stand. Now, mind you, up until this point, I mean, just if you've read up until this point in the chapter, just the inconsistencies. So, for example, let's say this. Haynes testified that after Frey ordered me out of my car, the two of us walked to Haynes' patrol car parked behind Laverne's Volkswagen, while Haynes remained near the front door of Frey's patrol car about 35 feet away from us. As Frey and I reached the rear of Haynes' car, Haynes testified that I turned around and started shooting, and that Frey and I started to tussle on the trunk of his car. At this point, Haynes said he was shot in his right arm, whereupon he switched his gun to his left hand. Immediately after this, he noticed out of the corner of his eye that the passenger in my car, which was Dean McKinney, curved with his arms in the air. Well, standing on the curb with his arms in the air. Haynes turned his gun on him, but after the passenger assured him he was not armed, Haynes turned back to Frey and me. By this time, Haynes said Frey and I had separated, although Frey was still hanging on to me, and Haynes shot at my stomach as I faced him. He did not say that he saw his bullet hit me, only that he fired at my midsection. After that, Haynes said he remembered only two things. First, sending out a 940B, the police emergency number, over the police radio. And second, seeing two men run into the darkness. So pretty much what we can already say is that this is a case of two officers who were probably sent to assassinate Huey P. Newton, but ended up firing on each other. And as, just as Haynes continues to just, I don't even know if you can classify this as a motherfucking testimony. All of the things just come out. But what's so striking is the fact that even with all of the faultiness, all of the contradictions, everything that is being exposed during this trial is still proceeding. The trial is still proceeding.
Yeah, and the judge is just going along with it and everything. On page 225, he goes into the weakness. He said the greatest weakness of his testimony, which Gary skillfully brought to the jury's attention, which again, this is what they're trying to do, is show the corruption, was that Haynes had turned his back on McKinney, having only McKinney's word that he was unarmed. Since the Oakland police distrusted and hated all Black Panthers, and since McKinney, who was unknown to Haynes, who was riding with the Black Panther Minister of Defense, could have very well have been a Black Panther, why had he himself so unprotected, particularly since he said he did not know where all the shots were coming from? As Gary suggested in his own cross-examination of Haynes, it was probably because Haynes was more worried about what Frey was going to do.
The other pig.
Right, what they had arrived there to do in the first place. Among the police, Frey was known to be watching at the Black community. He was even worse than a normal cop, which made him extremely dangerous. And I think I made a note there that the fact that, again, somewhere in this chapter, Huey had mentioned that, you know, a lot of people in the community felt like the justice system was going to do, you know, right by the community, or was going to do, you know, paint a picture of what really happened. That's what the purpose of the court is, right? To find out what really happened, and it's not. And so the fact that he highlights here, it says that Frey was known to be watching. How many of these police precincts have somebody that they know terrorize Africans and colonized people in their own communities, and they know, well, that's just Hal, that's just Gene, that's how they are, but we keep them in line. But then when something like this happens, they do nothing.
And I just want to read this part right here as well too. I mean, just to reinforce the fact that this trial, it was a sham, y'all. It was a complete sham. And it says, it was clear from Haynes' testimony and the way he had been coached by the prosecutor that great pains had been taken to avoid any implication that Frey and Haynes had shot each other. Charles Gary's first question Charles Gary is Huey's lawyer. His first question on cross-examination dealt with this. Did you shoot and kill Officer Frey? Haynes said no. Yet several facts pointed that way, and Haynes' evasions were not helpful for the prosecution. For instance, Haynes made a point of saying that he fired at me only when Frey and I had broken apart from our struggle on the car. A more damaging piece of evidence came from the ballistics section of the police department itself. So then, you fucking dumbass crack, listen. You first of all, you fabricate this stuff, and then you end up in your own report pretty much admit your own guilt. And it says, the expert who testified concluded that the bullets that had hit both Frey and Haynes came from police revolvers. They were lead bullets, not copper jacketed, as were the 2 9mm casings found on the ground at the scene of the shooting.
I mean, it's all right there. I mean, if you just watch Forensic Files, they can. I mean, it's very easy to determine where a bullet came from. It matches up to the gun barrel. It leaves every gun is different in that it leaves that, and it's just that alone is enough evidence. But again, they weren't interested in justice.
Yeah. So now, I think we can take a break, and cause I mean this is the first part. Yeah, let's see.
So let's see if we got any comments.
Okay.
It's really easy to get emotional about that. Suicide. I think Quayshawn had to read that back on page 248. No one knew why. It was simply. Okay, I think she went into the next part, but we can still read it. No one knew why. It was simply the rule. I did not mind throwing the shorts away, but I did not resent being given an explanation. It's a small point, but it demonstrates the mentality that exists on the entry level of prison administration. The administrator and the guards who run prisons are like George Orwell's brutes in 1984, who are chosen as policemen on the basis of ignorance, physical strength, and their disposition to follow orders without question, however stupid or brutal.
Yeah, that's chapter 27. We're gonna get into that.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody was asking for the name of the book?
Yeah, and Cameron answered.
Okay, cool.
And if anybody, and also we didn't say this earlier, but if anybody needs the PDF, let us know and we can post it in the comments.
Yes.
Because we want people to be able to follow along with what we're reading. So if you need the PDF, let us know, hit us up, and put it in the comments, and we'll respond with the PDF file for you.
Black Power. So the next major witness in the case, in the trial, is Henry Greer, and he's an African man. And at this time, he was a bus driver. Comrade, what's your comments on Henry Greer?
Well, I'm gonna say that overall, he was just somebody who had no insight. I mean, obviously he was being used by the state, and he had no insight into colonialism and how it affected the community, and I don't feel like I just felt like, you know how you have like zombies, like that, like just kind of somebody who was just being used. A lot of these coons and sellouts, I mean, that's what they do. And Huey saw that, and he understood that.
Yeah, that's why. And I see you have it highlighted. You want to read it?
Yeah. So okay. So like you said, Henry Greer's he's somebody who was supposedly a witness to the shooting. He's a bus driver that was supposedly there at the time the shooting happened, and. You know, so what I have highlighted at the bottom of 226 is his testimony. It says, when he testified for the first time on the afternoon of August the 7th, 1968, a feeling of disgust for him overwhelmed me. He was obviously a bald man who had sold out from terror of the white power structure, and perhaps because the district attorney had promised him a few handouts. My attorney also had reason to suspect after investigation that he was in some kind of trouble with his job or the law. And only by cooperating with the district attorney's office could he get out of this predicament. Yet, as the first trial wore on, my feelings and disgust turned to pity. He was, after all, a brother. As a black, I understood that he was coerced into selling his integrity for survival, and I knew he must have been disgusting to himself. After the first trial, I felt Greer would not be able to live with himself, but when he came back and did it twice again in the second and third trial, I realized he had been totally destroyed as a person, too corrupt to even feel shame. He was a complete mystery to me.
I just wanted to comment on, you know, what Comrade Huey says. He was, after all, a brother. As a black, I understood that he was coerced into selling his integrity for survival. Selling his integrity for survival. And, you know, that's something that African and colonized people are faced with every day. Am I going to go to this job and let my boss disrespect me? Am I going to send my kids to this school where I know these teachers are going to disrespect my children? Am I going to, you know, just sit still and cooperate once I'm pulled over by the pigs? And this is, you know, these are decisions that African and colonized people have to, you know, we make these decisions every single day. A mother, an African mother who may have to go to this job, who is being molested by her boss, but she knows that if she quits this job, she won't have any way to provide for her family. Or, you know, an African brother who participates in the illegal drug economy, who may even have an understanding of what, you know, the poison that is brought into our communities by the illegal drug economy, but how is his children supposed to eat? How is he supposed to survive? Like, these are the things that we get faced with every single day. And for Comrade Huey to point that out, I mean, that was just very deep and profound for me.
To have you know, Huey had a very revolutionary mindset in that he pretty much could analyze and deepen the understanding of pretty much any African in the community, like what their position was and why they would think the way that they would think, even if he initially might have had an emotional reaction to it, like the feeling he had to discuss from this brother at first, then kind of understanding that, okay, but it's very, I mean, the state can find a pawn very easily to represent their situation, because most of us, all of us, really are indoctrinated not to think or ask questions when it comes to the state. Just these people are empowered, do what they say, and maybe you'll have a chance to survive.
But nah, fuck Greer. Fuck him, because like he says, by the third trials, I realized he had been totally destroyed as a person, too corrupt to even feel ashamed. So he had already sold out. But it's important that we be able to reach people at this point to where what Comrade Huey is talking about, because when you can politically educate somebody to understand that you don't have to sell out your own integrity to like that there's integrity in organization, there's integrity for fighting for the liberation of African people. That's where you want to capture, the masses at. But clearly, as we get ready to see, this brother had already sold out to the highest bidder. So
and I think that you know when you're selling out, it's a feeling, because it's a feeling that you get when you selling out, and when you know it, you feel it. And this guy may have done it so many times that it's just he was used to it, but you know when you're doing it.
And then on top of that, they didn't find out. Now, mind you, as Comrade, I'm about to call you Comrade Kim, as Comrade Nyah said earlier, like this. Up until the trial, it had taken like 9 months of preparation. So they didn't even find out that Greer was a witness in the trial until like 6 days, I believe, before he was.
Before the trial.
Yeah, before he was getting ready to take the stand.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, well, hold on. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. So. At this point, they bring Greer into the trial or whatever, and so you have Jensen who's asking the questions and all this kind of stuff like that. So I believe Jensen says, "So do you know who shot the officer? Do you know who shot the pigs?" This sellout Negro gets his ass up and goes and put his hand on Huey's shoulder. As they're sitting through as all of this is going on.
He didn't just point to him. He went and
he did it. This is the one who did it, Massa. Now, mind you, while he's giving his testimony on trial, he had, after the incident, the pigs had already scooped him up and brought him into the station to record a statement. Now, Huey's legal team, they received the transcript of what was said between Greer and the I forgot who they call it, McConnell.
McConnell, yeah.
So the jury doesn't even know that this transcript exists. And in this transcript, Greer is telling McConnell that the man who shot the officers is 5'5". I believe he said 5'5". He said Pee-wee. Called him Pee-wee.
Yeah.
Said that Huey had like on a tan shirt, a tan jacket, and all of this other type of shit like that. So when he got on the stand, now mind you, because the jury still didn't know that this whole transcript existed. So even with all the inconsistencies that Greer was putting out on the stand, Jensen was still thinking that, okay, well, we can still ease by that. The jury won't pay attention to the whole. Yeah, but I feel like I'm moving ahead.
No, you're not.
Did you have anything?
Well, no, I mean, I have this highlighted at the bottom of page 227, and it just basically is talking about the transcript. And they're tearing apart Greer's statement because it's a lot of inconsistencies, like you said, with what what originally was supposedly told to the police, and then now what he's saying about how he was dressed, the fact that Huey's height. I mean, all of those inconsistencies, and they're just trying to skate by it. I mean, that's essentially what this paragraph is talking about.
And I want to read this portion right here where it says, at this point, the jury had not read the transcript of Greer's sworn statement to Inspector McConnell. And so when Jensen put Greer on the stand August 7th, the jurors were hearing for the first time Greer's account of the shooting. Jensen handled his testimony very slickly, emphasizing particularly that part in which Greer said, "I pulled a gun from inside my shirt, shot at Haynes, then shot and killed Frey, standing over him and firing 3 or 4 more shots into his body. When Greer walked over and identified me, the jury must have been convinced of my guilt, for Greer was a calm, assured witness. But Jensen made a crucial mistake. He thought he could get away with the inconsistencies between Greer's statement made an hour and a half after the shooting and what Jensen coached him to say on the stand. He had Greer tell the jury that he was less than 10 feet away from the participants in the shooting, whereas in his sworn statement to McConnell, Greer said he was 30 to 40 yards away. He told the jury in the courtroom that I reached into my shirt for my gun, but in his original statement, he had said I reached into the pocket of my jacket or coat to get it. Greer testified during the trial that Frey fell forward face down while he had told McConnell that Frey fell on his back. On the stand, Greer claimed that the bus lights were shining directly on the scene and he could see plainly, but he told McConnell that he could not tell how old the gunman was because he had his head down and he couldn't get a good look. He told Jensen on the stand that I had fled toward the post office construction site, but when McConnell had asked him if that was where I was headed when he had last seen me, Greer said no, that I was running northwest toward a gas station.
So these are just, and this is just really, like, you know that they are trying to, that it's a lie. It's a lie. At that point, if I was a juror, I would have just been like, what the fuck did I just listen to? If they were listening to the transcript, because this is nothing, this witness can't be trusted. I mean,
no.
And so with all that happening, they basically were able to demolish Greer's credibility, which is a good thing. But it's still carrying on. What did he say here? In his cross-examination of Greer, Gary first demonstrated that there had been absolutely no reason of his having been taken into protective custody. And that was the other thing I think I wanted to mention, was that they actually purposely hid this witness.
So
that they couldn't talk to him.
They went to his house, they called him, and all of this kind of stuff like that. And then the answer for that was that they had to put him in protective custody. But for what?
They just didn't want anybody messing with their witness.
Exactly.
And what they had said was, if he had been questioned, they would have convinced him that his testimony would have never stood up in court, and they knew that. And they needed all the witnesses they could get.
Right.
So,
exactly.
And then it goes into the cross-examination, Gary actually cross-examining Greer. And I kind of want to read some of that just so you could just. But this is how the cross-examination went at one point. This is the bottom of page 231. Gary says, "How was the civilian dressed?" Greer responds, "Well, sir, I'm not going to mock it. Well, sir, he had on a dark jacket and a light shirt." Gary says, "As a matter of fact, sir, didn't that civilian have on a dark shirt and a light tan jacket?" "No, sir." "I want you to think about this before you answer it. I'm going to ask you again. Isn't it a fact that the person you have described as the civilian was a person who had a dark shirt on, a black shirt on, and a light tan jacket?" Silence. A light tan jacket. Greer says, "No, sir, it was dark." Judge Freeman, "What was the answer?" Greer, "Dark." Judge Freeman, "Dark what?" "The outer garment was dark." "How tall was the civilian?" From up in the coach, sir, to look down at an angle like that, I wouldn't dare say, sir." "Isn't that a fact that the civilian was under 5 feet?" "I do not know, sir." "Would you say that the civilian was a heavyset, thin, or otherwise?" "I didn't pay that close attention, counselor." "Mr. Greer, you know that you're under oath, do you not?" "I do, sir, I do." Jensen objects to that being argumentative, Your Honor. "Mr. Greer, you made a statement to Inspector McConnell on the 28th day of October 1967 in the hour of 6:30 a.m. "That's right, sir." "And in that statement, didn't you tell Inspector McConnell that the person that was involved was under 5 feet?" "I could have, sir." "Did you or did you not say so?" "I don't recall making any specific statement, sir, as to that fact, sir." So then after that, they adjourned. But all this, it was just so evident that this was somebody that they had paid or had some other incentive to say or lie. it's unreal. It's really unreal.
And I don't want to. Well, next, because a lot of another major component of the trial was the kidnapping of, well, the supposed kidnapping of Del Ross, and I think I don't want to. We got like 5 minutes left, and it's some major points that I would like to speak to. You know, beginning with the Del Ross situation. So much so that because all of these witnesses, you got to understand that they were lined up to be a detriment to Huey. But as we see from Henson off the pig to Greer the sellout, and as we're getting ready to see with Del Ross coming up, like all of this shit it's falling to pieces. It's just falling to pieces.
I mean, it really puts me in the mind of Asada's
Yeah,
trial.
exactly. And I mean, these are just examples that we have of, you know, what happens to African and colonized people who choose to stand up to the full stature of, you know, not necessarily a revolutionary, but to stand up against even at the most simplest levels, the injustices that we experience, you know, on a day-to-day basis. And, you know, if anything is evident, is that the state doesn't need anything to prosecute us for wanting to have dignity, for wanting us to have self-determination, for wanting us to have, you know, the basic means to take care of ourselves. And we got to understand that as imperialism, you know, remains intact, as colonialism remains intact, anything that we do, it's not crazy, but anything that we do to try to survive is an attack on white imperialism. It's an attack on, you know, colonialism. For us to want to feed our children, let's not even say to feed our children, but for us to want our children to receive an education that is reflective of them, that speaks to their interests, that is an attack on white imperialism. And so therefore we are now the enemies of this system that is trying to keep us away from being able to just live with dignity as a people, at the most simplest thing.
And then the state has unlimited resources to basically do whatever they want with you. They have unlimited resources, people, ponds, whoever they want to carry out their interests in the way they do it, they have the unlimited resources to make that happen. And we see that in this case. Like, they could basically pull any old stooge off the street, make something up, pay them off, and then basically, you know, it's a wrap.
Anything could be buried. Anything could be beer. How do you say it? When you put it in the ground, buried. We say, in the South, we say buried. We about to bury you. Yeah. It could be fabricated, like all of these things.
Yeah.
It's okay. Thank you for sharing, Rod. All right, y'all. So that's it for the first half of chapter 26. We're going to finish that up next week, and then we're going to go into chapter 27. Yeah, I'm just really excited because we're getting to the end of this book, and I'm excited about the next book that we're getting ready to read.
Are we going to announce it?
No, not yet. We're going to wait. But yeah. I'm very excited.
Me too.
So, yeah, y'all donate to the links that we have posted right here in the comments. CashApp BHBookclub, GoFundMe.com/BlackHammer.org, or go to BlackHammer.org and donate through there. Become a member of Black Hammer. Get into revolutionary life. Come into organization. You know, we understand that it's an everyday thing for African and colonized people to survive. So, child, we ain't even trying to ask for too much of your time. You can donate or you can participate, you know, which any capacity that we can connect you to the liberation struggle for African and colonized people. We want to do
Absolutely.
that. We want to do that. We need you. We need
And
you.
we're better to use your talents and your intellect and your labor to actually build for your people. I would rather that the skills that I've obtained in whatever bourgeois institution to benefit my people. And we need everything that you see that's making the imperialist system to thrive. Doctors, attorneys, we need that to build for us. And I don't know why we wouldn't want to use those talents to build our people up. So join Black Hammer today. You can be a member as low as $5 a month, and just help us build.
Yes.
I mean,
Black power. Also, I just want to say to anybody, even though we're nearing the end of the book, we still want to provide you with the PDF so you can just, read it on your own or in your own time. So hit us up on any of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we will get you the PDF for this book, okay? So until next Sunday, y'all be safe. Listen, don't fuck with pigs at all.
don't
All right?
trust them. Don't tell us you know a good one either.
And like the community programs that you see, we got to go. That's about to open up a whole new avenue. But anyway, Black Power Comrades, we'll see y'all next Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Black power.